Coming up on this episode, the end of the Giannis dream and what it means for a bigger issue the Warriors have faced over recent years. Michael Porter Jr. reports have resurfaced over Golden State's interest in him before the mid-season deadline, but I'll discuss what it would take for the Warriors to renew interest come the offseason. Plus, the Warriors work out Yaxel Lindenborg as the draft edges ever closer in a couple of weeks' time. Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates podcast. Hope you're all having a good week. Today is Thursday, June 11, or Friday, June 12, if you're me in Australia right now, and I'm declaring it. I am saying this is the date that Golden State's dreams of trading for Giannis Antetokounmpo have officially ended. Now, not officially maybe because an Antetokounmpo trade still hasn't taken place, but the latest report from Jake Fisher of the Stein Line on Thursday has made it basically the unofficial end. Let's put it this way. The Warriors will not, and I will repeat, will not be trading for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, many of you would have probably told me that days, weeks ago, but this is the full stop. We're not talking about Giannis and the Warriors anymore, okay? I've done it relentlessly for hours and hours on end, particularly before the mid-season deadline, and I'm not doing it anymore. No, I'm not doing it anymore. Fisher reports Minnesota and Golden State were both prominent Antetokounmpo suitors in February when the Bucks briefly invited trade interest in their face of the franchise, but sources say neither team has factored in to the Bucks' recent trade talks. Now, just quickly on the Giannis trade talks, it feels like Miami is still in the box seat to get a deal done here that would surround Tyler Hero, Khalil Ware, Jaime Jaquez Jr., multiple draft picks, whatever else they're going to throw in there. At no point have we seen that Andrew Wiggins is actually going to be part of the deal. Obviously, there's some interest there as a former Warrior just to see if Wiggs was moved in a Giannis trade. Will he be moved in a subsequent trade if the Heat think they can get another upgrade there and another piece in? Potentially, maybe there's been some rumors of like Kawhi and Giannis both going to Miami. I actually think Andrew Wiggins with Giannis Antetokounmpo and Bam Adebayo, I think he actually fits really well with those guys. I think the Bam Giannis fit may be a little bit tricky, but we saw Bam more open at obviously taking threes this past season and stuff in terms of the front court spacing there. But I'm not going to talk too much about the Heat, but obviously they appear to be in the box seat for Giannis. The Boston Celtics are the other team that are lurking a little bit, I suppose, because if they're willing to throw Jaylen Brown in and either Jaylen Brown goes to Milwaukee, which is probably more likely a third team that would just give up a bunch of assets that Miami might actually find more preferable than what Milwaukee might find more preferable than what Miami have got on the table right now. They're kind of the two teams. It sounds like Portland want to get involved in the Giannis sweepstakes, and obviously they themselves have the draft capital. They own the rights to a few of Milwaukee's future picks. They're going to have the offer that Milwaukee probably want, but Giannis doesn't sound like he wants to sign an extension, and obviously he's going to be able to dictate where he ends up here to some degree, and if he's not willing to sign an extension in Portland, they're probably not going to give up all the assets in order to acquire him, although Shams did report something in contrast to that last week, I think it was. But let's be honest, I don't think any Western Conference team is really a suitor now for Giannis, because it sounds, and we've heard this for quite a while now, that he wants to remain in the Eastern Conference, where even though the Knicks look like they're going to win the championship, an incredible Game 4, obviously, that we saw on Wednesday night at Madison Square Garden, even though the Knicks are probably going to win the chip, we still see the Oklahoma City Thunder, San Antonio Spurs as the two teams probably most set up for success over the next 5-10 years, whatever timeline you want to put on it. And therefore, you can still understand why Giannis would probably want to stick in the Eastern Conference. This is not a situation where Golden State are pulling themselves out of the race for Giannis. This is more so a situation where I think clearly Giannis has never really truly shown an interest or a desire to be traded to Golden State. It's as simple as that. And again, when you're talking about a player of this magnitude, one of the best players in the league, like if he's not willing to sign an extension with you and he's really not showing much of an interest, then are you going to pull off the trade? And I think there's been so much frustration about from fans on the Warriors' lack of activity in terms of adding stars in the past few years, or more so the fact like they're just endlessly linked to stars. Like any big name that comes up, it's like the Warriors are interested. The Warriors are interested. They seem to always want to be at the table, but they can never get a move done. I think there's been a lot of frustration from Warrior fans, including myself, on this. We can go back to so many different things. If you go back to like the 2024 offseason where it's like Paul George, couldn't get that over the line. Okay, now we're going to focus on Larry Markkinen, couldn't get that over the line. LeBron, who we're now showing interested to get in again in the next few weeks, he's rejected past moves that Golden State have made towards him. Giannis is just the latest. OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, like obviously Anunoby, that's kind of gone viral in the last 24 hours because of his game winner in Game 4. The Warriors could have traded for him on multiple different occasions. Not only have we had the reports, the very strong reports that have gone viral about not being willing to give up Jonathan Kuminga in an OG Anunoby trade back at the 2023 deadline, I think it was. But even Tim Kawakami of the San Francisco Standard put on X/Twitter earlier today that the Warriors actually tried to trade Jordan Poole in the 2023 offseason for OG Anunoby. Can you imagine if they did that, traded Jordan Poole and maybe a pick or two for Anunoby then, rather than trade him for Chris Paul and then have Chris Paul for one pretty mediocre season and let that contract expire out? The Warriors would be a different story with OG Anunoby, but I want to... The issue is that the Warriors can't... The issue isn't that the Warriors can't get a move over the line. It's more so it's like, why do these guys not want to come to the Warriors? That's the bigger issue facing Golden State. It's not that they can't get a deal over the line. It's that these dudes actually don't want to play for the Warriors. And long gone are the days of Kevin Durant signing with this team in 2016 or DeMarcus Cousins being willing to take the MLE in 2018. Like, the Warriors haven't really been able to attract a star player for quite a few years now. Even the one big name they've landed in the last few years, Jimmy Butler, was incredibly hesitant. We saw plenty of reports on him not wanting to come to the Warriors. And it wasn't until the last moment before the trade deadline where it was like, the last thing I want to do is remain in Miami. So if this is my only option, and they're also willing to throw in a 2-year, $110 million extension or whatever it was, okay, now I will go to the Warriors because there's a better alternative than staying in Miami. And that was basically his only option. So even the one big name they did get had hesitancy about joining the Warriors. And now again, like the former Raptors pair, Anunoby didn't want to go to the Warriors. Siakam didn't want to go to the Warriors. Giannis didn't want to go to the Warriors. LeBron in the past hasn't wanted to go to the Warriors. Larry Markkinen, all the reports there were that he was more than content to stay in Utah rather than head to the Warriors, even though the Jazz were in quite the rebuilding mode and since have been as well. And obviously that was proven in the fact that he signed a long-term extension with the franchise. So, I mean, the Warriors just, again, get brought up in every trade discussion that basically revolves around a big-name player, and yet they cannot get a deal done, largely not because they don't have the assets, because we know they have the assets, but either they don't want to give up enough assets, or more so, they're probably worried that if they give up the assets here, that it's not actually going to work out for them in the long term because the player could duck and run if they're not willing to sign an extension with the team. So that's the issue here is no one wants to play for, no big name player recently has really wanted to play for Golden State. And that's a problem. And that's why I think this whole LeBron thing is really important, not just from an on-court standpoint. That's the thing we focus around mainly is like the Warriors need LeBron James from an on-court standpoint. They need him to come and help Steph Curry to try and boost an offense that's, ranked 19th in the league this past season. Obviously, if they keep Jimmy Butler and don't trade him, you're going to need LeBron to come in and try and bring some life to your offense while Jimmy remains out. So make no mistake, the Warriors need LeBron James from an on-court standpoint. But this is also about an image thing. This is also about a reputation thing. This is also about showing to, perhaps most importantly, us as fans, but also just like the league overall, like everyone, this is showing everyone that, hey, we can still attract one of the biggest names in the history of the game. Even at 41 years old, LeBron James is still one of the most recognizable people in the world, let alone just the NBA. And so this is about sending a message that, hey, we can still go after a player, and when push comes to shove, we can land that player. Because the Warriors just haven't been able to do that in recent years. It just hasn't happened, aside from Jimmy. And again, he had reservations about it. So it's an image and a reputation thing, and an off-court thing, as much as it is an on-court thing when it comes to trying to sign LeBron James, because you just don't know the influence that could have in future moves. In the absolute immediate short term, signing LeBron James, I think, would make the Warriors much more enticing to some free agents who might get more than the minimum elsewhere, but might think, you know what, the opportunity to play with Steph and LeBron and be on a team that's trying to contend, I'm going to be willing to take the minimum with that team. So that's the short-term benefit. The long-term benefit, again, is maybe when the Warriors are trying to pursue other stars down the line, whether it's 2-3 years' time, maybe while Steph is still probably ideally still on the team, but the next big move the Warriors make for a star, that star might think, you know what? Well, they must be all right because LeBron decided to leave the Lakers to go there. So, you know what? If a trade can get done, I'm willing to go there, and I'm not going to be so much against it in a way that clearly Giannis has been and other stars before him as well. So this is the thing for the Warriors, is trying to fix the bigger issue. The Giannis piece is one thing. We spoke about that at length. We don't need to speak about it anymore. But it's just the inability to attract players to want to play for the Warriors, which I think is a little bit bizarre because Steph Curry is the most unselfish superstar of all time. Like, guys should want to play with Steph Curry. I think it's probably a recent, if I'm trying to look at it from an optimistic standpoint, I suppose, from a Warrior fan perspective, is why do these players not want to play for Golden State? I don't want to see it as, well, because the organization sucks, basically. I actually want to go the other way and say the organization's had so much success over the past dozen years and winning 4 championships that a player joining and winning and bringing another championship to the Warriors isn't going to be the same as bringing a championship to another team who hasn't been able to deliver the same success the Warriors have in the past 10, 12 years. So that's the way I would like to put it. But honestly, it could still be an organizational thing as well, where the Warriors aren't the elite franchise they once were. But I don't know. That's why it's going to be so fascinating to see what happens with LeBron, because it's not just an on-court thing, but it's an off-court image thing as well. In terms of star trades, Michael Porter Jr., who we had Michael Scott of Hoops Hype kind of bring up his name again in trade discussions on Tuesday, I think it was, where he basically reported the Warriors were close to giving up a first-round pick, or considering giving up a first-round pick for Michael Porter Jr. before the February mid-season deadline. Also brought Terrence Mann into the conversation as well, as part of a deal that would have to require a third team. And I want to kind of bring Terrence Mann into the discussion, not that he's a big piece of this, but in terms of the salary matching aspect of this. So before the mid-season deadline, the Warriors could have put a package together that included Draymond and Kuminga maybe for Michael Porter Jr. and another small salary piece, maybe like a Day'Ron Sharpe or something, and obviously maybe throwing a pick in there as well. In the end, they keep Draymond, they trade Porzingis. They trade Kuminga for Porzingis, obviously. Now, the Warriors have 2 paths here, one of which probably won't be open, and the other one they just shouldn't take altogether. The first one is trading Jimmy Butler and a pick for Michael Porter Jr. And let's say Terrence Mann, because Terrence Mann's on about $15 million. MPJ's on 40. That basically rounds out to what Jimmy's salary is. So it's like Jimmy and a pick for Michael Porter Jr. and Terrence Mann. Maybe Terrence Mann goes to a third team and the Warriors say some dosh there. I don't know. But basically, that's what we're looking at. I just wouldn't make that trade. I just would not make that trade. And the reason is, Jimmy Butler's a better player than Michael Porter Jr., in my opinion. Now, he might not be coming off the torn ACL, right? I understand that. He might not be. He's not giving you anything for the first 40, 50 games of the season, potentially. And obviously, Michael Porter Jr. could come out and bring life to your offense straight away next season. So I understand it, but I just think I rate Jimmy Butler higher than I do Michael Porter Jr. And I think hopefully he can come back to 90%, 80, 90% of what he was. And also just like there's a cultural element to this as well, where we just I just love Jimmy Butler. Like I honestly just love Jimmy Butler. And so he brings some vibes to the team, I think, that has probably been far better than what we envisioned when he was initially traded to the Warriors. And it was like, again, as I mentioned before, well, he had some reservations about joining the team and how happy is he going to be here and stuff like that. So I just wouldn't make that move because I'm giving up arguably the better player and I'm giving up the pick in order to do it. It's like I'm giving up the better player and a pick for Michael Porter Jr. I'm just not making that move. Both, I think, are on expiring contracts, so financially it doesn't really matter, and I suppose that's maybe why it's feasible. If you're Brooklyn and you can just get a first-round pick for Michael Porter Jr., do you you're going to be rebuilding again next season? Do you really care about taking on Jimmy Butler's salary for next season? Probably not. So I could see them being open to it. Would they need more than one first-round pick? I don't know what the market is necessarily for Michael Porter Jr., but if it is one first-round pick, I could understand why both teams would consider it. It's just not a move that I would make if I'm Golden State because I don't think it elevates me enough. Like Michael Porter Jr. is not enough of an upgrade over Jimmy Butler come next year's playoffs, for example. Like, yes, sure he is for the first 40, 50 games, and that could help get the Warriors to the playoffs. But the aspect of this is like, if you trade for MPJ, you're not going to get, you're probably not going to get LeBron James in that scenario. And that's why I want to bring up the different path, which is probably unlikely to even open up, because the other path is you keep Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green opts into his $27.6 million player option, and you trade Draymond Green, Moses Moody. Unfortunately, I don't want to get rid of Moses, but again, salary matching would require this. Draymond, Moses, and a first-round pick, let's say 2027 first-round pick for Michael Porter Jr. And you keep Jimmy Butler in that scenario, and you have a trio of Jimmy, Steph, and MPJ. Now, the trade itself, I actually don't mind. Like Draymond, Moses, and a pick. Like to me, that's actually a pretty good deal for the Warriors. The issue with this is you're not going to be able to get LeBron in this scenario because suddenly you're not going to have access to the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. And if LeBron's going to come to the Warriors, as much as Michael Porter Jr. is a better player than Draymond Green, I actually think LeBron would be like, no, I'm coming because I want to play with a dude my age and a dude that I've a close relationship with in Draymond. Even though it would behoove me, if I want to win a championship, to have Michael Porter Jr. over Draymond Green. Now, I don't know what LeBron would think about that, but you'd also be asking LeBron to take the minimum in the MPJ scenario rather than, hey, Draymond's going to opt out. He's going to sign for a much lower number, and that lower number is going to be enough to open up access to the non-taxpayer MLE, and we can pay you $15.1 million next season rather than the absolute minimum. So that's why I think it's very unlikely the Warriors renew interest in MPJ. This is a scenario to me where if the LeBron thing falls over and just isn't a possibility and he resigns with the Lakers, then the Warriors could be like, you know what, Draymond, and Stevie Ray and I discussed this going back to last week. We're just not going to offer you a contract. And we're going to dare you and say, well, if you want to opt out and go get another deal elsewhere, good luck to you, but you're not going to get anything near the $27.6 million player option you've got. We're going to bank on you picking up that player option. As soon as you do, well, you become a trade candidate for us. And we can move you in a deal like this, along with Moses Moody, which would be tough. Giving up Draymond and Moses would be tough. But let's be honest, like that would be an upgrade, getting Michael Porter Jr., silky, smooth scorer, can give you 20 plus points a game, would have a very, very big offensive role early next season while Jimmy Butler remains out. And then obviously could transition back to being a third guy. Or probably still the Golden State's second leading scorer, even when Jimmy comes back. Jimmy can probably be a nice role for him, you would argue, coming back if you had Steph and MPJ, and you could just settle into like a third role where maybe you're looking at more the playmaking aspect that he provides rather than necessarily the scoring. So that's the scenario I can see. But one, I just don't think that Draymond's going to opt into his $27.6 million player option. And I think Golden State's ideal scenario is he opts out, signs a lesser deal, and it gives them the room to be able to sign LeBron James. So I don't think it's something the Warriors are going to consider right now. It's more a after free agency kind of thing, see how things pan out. And if Draymond, opts in and becomes a trade candidate, then that's the kind of deal I suppose they could potentially make. The draft. Yaxel Lindenborg has officially held his workout for the Warriors in the past few hours on Thursday. Spoke afterwards about how he could impact the Warriors and talked about him being a source of instant offense, potentially off the bench once, Steph Curry's off the floor, which I thought was interesting. I actually like him. I think Yaxel makes a lot of sense for the Warriors because, one, obviously he's an older prospect, no doubt about that. Two, I actually think he fits with Steph and without Steph. Like, the Warriors need a dude like that who can impact on both ends of the floor, who brings size and athleticism. My only issue with Yaxel, I suppose, is with Draymond. If Draymond's still on this team, because there's a lot of similarities. Yaxel also spoke about his secondary playmaking role and opportunity as well, and drew some similarities and comparisons to Draymond Green. And could you have both of them on the floor together? Potentially at the 4 and the 5, if you're going to go small, that's what you do. But that's probably going to be the biggest issue, and the tricky nature of that is playing those two guys together. With Yaxel and Steph, I could see that being a perfect fit. I mean, Steph's a perfect fit with most guys, let's be honest. But it's going to be super fascinating to see which direction the Warriors go here. I'm kind of convinced that they're either going to take Yaxel or they're going to take Ade Mara, one of the Michigan guys. I just feel like both those guys feel a need. In terms of Yaxel, I heard someone say the other day that, if the Warriors sign LeBron James, then they're going to go elsewhere. They don't need another 6'8", 6'9" forward in that scenario. I completely disagree. I would, look at the NBA. If you've got guys that can impact on both ends of the floor, who bring size and athleticism at the forward spot, that's incredibly valuable. And you're talking about a front court, LeBron James is 41 years old. Draymond Green's going to be 37 years old next season. Kristaps Porzingis is injury-prone as hell if he was to come back, right, in free agency. Jimmy Butler, if he's still on the team, he's going to be out for half the season. I saw someone on Twitter say, Yaxel, you're not going to play, mate. You're not going to play if the Warriors sign LeBron and have Draymond and KP and Jimmy. Yes, he will. One, I think he'll be good enough to earn minutes. Two, the Warriors could just, I think part of the thing for us as fans is, the Warriors just need to play a bit bigger. And I just think having so many options would be fantastic because it would force Steve Kerr into playing bigger lineups. And thirdly, and most obviously, these dudes are all old and injury prone. So I think the path to Yaxel Lindenborg coming in and, as I spoke about on last episode, I think playing 20 to 25 minutes a game and even starting potentially 30, 40 games during the regular season, I think it's a pretty obvious path. And then again, being able to learn from LeBron James is who I think he mentioned is someone that he's obviously looked at in terms of his skill set and play style. I think he mentioned LeBron magic as the ability to handle the ball, obviously at that size. Paolo Banchero he's been compared to as well. These are dudes that the Warriors could certainly do with, obviously, in terms of LeBron, Yaxel. If Draymond comes back, I've spoken about Draymond coming off the bench. Maybe KP's still there. Maybe you bring Jimmy back, mid-season. These dudes, yes, there would be some adjustments to be made in terms of the front court spacing and the concerns there. But I think for us as Warrior fans, looking at the way the league is going, sometimes you just want to be able to match the physicality and the size and the athleticism. And too many times over recent seasons, we've seen Golden State completely struggle to match other teams in those aspects. And so, if anything, actually going overboard with guys that are 6'6" to 6'9" with some size and some athleticism would actually be, I think, a benefit to the Warriors. And again, for Steve Kerr to play bigger lineups. And then it's going to be interesting to see if they go the Mara direction, what would happen to Porzingis in that scenario and the links between Mara and Porzingis and where the Warriors go here with their center spot. Because I've said all along, I'm not in love with Kristaps Porzingis, but I do view him when healthy as a starting quality center in the NBA. And the Warriors just don't have an easy way to replace that. And I also don't think asking Ade Mara to be a starting center from day dot, opening night next season, I don't think that's a realistic expectation. So if they end up drafting Mara, which is going to happen, if that goes down, it's going to be a week before free agency. Does that signal that the Warriors are willing to move on from KP, or at least willing to move on given what he's asking for in free agency? I don't know. Like, only time will tell. I could certainly see a world in which both of them are on the roster. Because the other fascinating aspect would be, like, what if Mara is available at 11 and the Warriors actually bypass him and let the Spurs take him at 12 or something? Does that mean that the Warriors either don't really like him, or they're like, no, we don't really need KP and Mara on the roster, and we're very confident in re-signing KP, so we're just gonna have him. I don't know. It's gonna be super fascinating. I could see both. I would have both of them, right? I could see both of them. If, like, yeah, I think Yaxel would still be my number one guy, but if for some reason he's not available or whatever, then I think Mara and Porzingis, and just saying, all right, you two guys are going to play, like, Porzingis might play 25 minutes. Mara might play 18 to 20 minutes. Maybe you still have Horford on the team in that scenario, and you just go into the center into next season with your center rotation of Porzingis, Horford, and Mara. Maybe you have Charles Bassey as, like, your 15th guy potentially, and basically just say, like, all right, if Draymond's still on the team, he's just not playing any minutes as a small ball five, like, particularly during the regular season, particularly early on. Like, we just don't want to put the mileage on him having to battle big guys. Now, inevitably, Steve Kerr's going to go back to playing Draymond as a small ball five, I'm sure, for clutch minutes and stuff like that. But again, trying to take that out of Steve's hands to some degree by saying, look, hey, we've got 2 7-3 guys here in Porzingis and Mara. Are you really going to bench both of those guys down the stretch? Are you really going to bench Al Horford as well and have Draymond as a small ball five? Like, I just don't think that's going to happen. So I could see a center rotation looking like that if Mara is available. Now, do I think he gets past, or do I think he gets to the Warriors at 11? Maybe not. I think the Hawks at 8 kind of need a center option there to kind of complement Okongwu. If I'm Jonathan Kuminga, just to dabble into the Hawks for a second, if I'm Jonathan Kuminga, I don't want the Hawks to take Ade Mara, because Mara's not a shooting threat, a spacing threat whatsoever. And if I'm adding him to a team that has Okongwu, Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels. Now, Johnson and Okongwu certainly raised their three-point shooting this past season, both in terms of volume and three-point percentage, but I wouldn't classify them as absolute knockdown elite shooters. And so if you've got Dyson Daniels, whose three-point shooting fell off a cliff, Johnson, Okongwu, and Mara, where does Jonathan Kuminga fit into that in terms of his role with the Hawks? And therefore, are the Hawks looking at him as a guy that, hey, we're going to give a 3 or 4 year contract extension to at $25 million a year? So if I'm Jonathan Kuminga, obviously I've still got a watch on him as a former Warrior. I don't want the Hawks to draft Ade Mara, but he's certainly going to be one of the more fascinating prospects in this draft because of the whole Wemby question. Now, maybe that's been eliminated somewhat by the fact that Wemby hasn't been as effective in these finals so far. I mean, he's still been fairly dominant. He's just had some periods, I suppose, or some times where he struggled. His efficiency hasn't obviously been great. He's still obviously been a big presence in the NBA finals so far. And if things had worked out a little bit differently, you'd probably see the Spurs holding a 3-1 lead right now over the Knicks. But you're going to have to find an answer to Wemby. And in terms of physical skill set, Ade Mara is about as close as you're going to get to Wemby, I suppose, in terms of his length, that 9'9" standing reach. And that makes him one of the more interesting prospects in the draft and someone the Warriors could certainly look at, considering they have not been able to find a long-term starting center for years and years and years. You know, even when Kevon Looney was a consistent, starting option for the Warriors, I think a lot of us were like looking at and even the Warriors themselves were looking at the next option. Obviously, James Wiseman was supposed to be the big white hope. He's our long-term starting center for the next dozen years. Dude played 60 games for the team before being traded. So, I don't know. I'm just super interested to see what the Warriors do with this 11th overall pick, and also whether or not they trade into getting a second first-round pick, because you look at teams like Oklahoma City with 12 and 17. I'm pretty confident the Thunder are probably only going to take one of those picks. Charlotte have 14 and 18, but the Warriors trade 11 for 14 and 18 and try and get 2 prospects a little bit later in the first round. There's a report from part of Fisher's report today, I think that the Hawks are looking to trade pick 23. Now, that might be a bit later on, and like, what do you necessarily give up for the 23rd pick? Because do you necessarily want to give up a future first-round pick for that? Depends, again, who's on the board, I suppose, and this is all these possibilities and scenarios aren't necessarily going to be known until the Warriors are actually on the board on the clock at the 11th overall pick, and you know who's available for you and what the different scenarios and situations and trade possibilities are. But I'm certainly keeping an eye out for the Warriors potentially, trading into a second first round pick and trying to accelerate not just the post Steph Curry timeline, but some of these dudes that you could get in the middle to late first round are probably going to be more impactful for you as soon as next season than going to get a guy on the veteran minimum in free agency. Like, if you looked at it in terms of who the Warriors signed last season, it's like, okay, would you rather a dude from this draft who could be taken, I don't know, somewhere between 14 and 18, for example, or would you rather have Seth Curry or Gary Payton II on the end of the roster? Like, the dude who's between 14 and 18 is probably going to be more impactful for you straight away, and obviously offers far more in terms of upside moving forward. So certainly something I'm interested in if I'm the Warriors, and seeing what the trade possibilities are there in terms of acquiring a second first round pick. I'm going to finish it up there, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that'd be greatly appreciated. Follow me at POK252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. If you've got any comments in relation to this episode in terms of Giannis, LeBron, Michael Porter Jr., the draft, absolutely anything, then leave them if you're listening on YouTube, and then leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, you can tweet me, of course, at POK252, as I mentioned before. Thank you very much again for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next episode.